This is Lieutenant Felix Sparks. He's 27 years old. He's a decorated officer of the U.S. 45th Infantry Division, and in exactly 7 minutes, he's going to try to stop a massacre. But he'll be too late. This is Dachau, April 29th, 1945. Not a reenactment, the actual footage, the real bodies. Over 30,000 living skeletons behind barbed wire. And this is not CGI. These are real gunshots you're hearing, real SS guards falling, real American soldiers pulling triggers. This is not a simple story of good versus evil. This is what happens when good men see the worst of humanity. For decades, the U.S. Army tried to bury this story. Witnesses were threatened with court-martial, reports were rewritten, photographs disappeared, but the truth survived. This is what really happened at the liberation of Dachau, and what it reveals about all of us. This is Felix Sparks in 1943. He's 25 years old. Before the war, he was a law student in Arizona. He believes in rules, in order, in the law. And this is Felix Sparks 2 years later, on April 29th, 1945. He's now a lieutenant colonel. He's fought through Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, southern France, and now deep into Germany. He's seen combat for 511 consecutive days, but he's never seen anything like what he's about to see. The 45th Infantry Division, nicknamed the Thunderbirds, has been pushing through Bavaria. They're exhausted. The war is clearly ending. Everyone knows it. Hitler will be dead in 48 hours. But they don't know that yet. On the morning of April 29th, Sparks receives new orders. His battalion is to proceed to a place called Dachau, or it's marked as a political prison camp. Intelligence reports suggest it might hold Allied POWs. This is what American soldiers thought concentration camps were. Prisons for political dissidents. Maybe some harsh conditions. Nothing they haven't seen before. They were catastrophically wrong. Let's be clear about something important. In April 1945, most American soldiers had no idea what the concentration camp system really was. They'd heard rumors, stories about labor camps. Some intelligence reports mentioned mass killings. But these reports seemed too extreme to be believable, too systematic, too industrial. This is Lieutenant William Walsh. He was 22 years old, an infantry platoon leader with Sparks Battalion. Years later, Walsh would write, "We thought concentration camps were just tough prisons, like Alcatraz, but German. But we had no mental framework for what we were about to encounter." This is Howard Buchner. He was a battalion surgeon with the 45th, also 22 years old, fresh from medical school. Buchner later wrote, "I'd treated wounded soldiers. I'd seen men with legs blown off, faces burned beyond recognition. I thought I'd seen the worst. I was wrong." Dachau was established in 1933. It was the first Nazi concentration camp. For 12 years, it had been perfecting the machinery of death. Over 200,000 prisoners passed through its gates. More than 41,500 were murdered here. But the Americans advancing toward it that morning knew none of this. This is what makes what happens next so important to understand. These were not men predisposed to violence. They were not bloodthirsty. They were actually, by all accounts, pretty ordinary guys. This is Private John Lee. He's 19, from Kentucky. He joined up because his older brother was killed at Normandy. In his letters home, he talks about his dog, his girlfriend, getting back to the farm. This is Tech Sergeant Henry Wells, age 28. He's married. His wife is pregnant with their first child. He carries her photograph in his helmet liner. This is Lieutenant Jack Bushyhead, full-blooded Cherokee, age 24. Before the war, he was studying to be a teacher. His platoon called him Chief, and he didn't mind. The morning of April 29th starts like any other day of the advance. Clear spring weather. The German countryside is actually beautiful. Farms, rolling hills, apple orchards in bloom. The men are tired, but not particularly tense. Most German units are surrendering without much fight now. Everyone just wants to go home. This is from Private Lee's diary, written that morning. Nice day, barely any resistance, pass through a couple of small towns. Civilians mostly stay inside. Should be in Munich soon. Maybe the war ends this week, God willing. Just a normal day until about 11:30 hours. They're approaching the outskirts of Dachau town. The radio crackles, new orders. They're being diverted to investigate this camp complex. Lieutenant Walsh later recalled, "We were annoyed, honestly. It seemed like a distraction. We wanted to keep pushing toward Munich. Nobody wanted to waste time on some prison inspection." Aerial footage of approach to Dachau. At 11:47 hours, the first American troops arrive at Dachau's outer perimeter, and everything changes. This is the Dachau death train, not a recreation, the actual train, photographed exactly as American soldiers found it, 39 boxcars, each one packed with bodies, nearly 2,300 corpses, prisoners who had been evacuated from Buchenwald. They'd been locked inside without food or water for weeks. Most starved to death. Some died of dehydration. Others were simply shot when they begged for water. This is where everything broke. Look at this man's face. Really look at it. This photo was taken about 30 seconds after he opened the first boxcar. You can see he's trying to understand what he's seeing. His brain is trying to process it, and failing. This is what combat veteran Lieutenant Walsh wrote. "The smell hit us first, even before we saw them. It was like nothing else, sweet, rotten, overwhelming. Then we saw the first car. We thought maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe these were mannequins, some kind of German propaganda setup. They couldn't be real people. The human body doesn't look like that. But they were real. Some of the bodies were so emaciated that soldiers initially thought they were children. They weren't. They were grown men who'd been starved down to 70, 60, 50 pounds. Private John Veitch was 20 years old. He'd fought at Anzio. This is what he later testified. "I'd seen plenty of dead guys, battle deaths, but this was different. These people had been tortured to death, slowly, methodically, and someone had locked them in these cars and just let them die. Some prisoners were still alive, barely. Skeletons with a whisper of breath. The medics tried to help them, but they didn't know how. You can't just feed someone who's been starved for months. Their digestive systems have shut down. Food can actually kill them." Dr. Buchner, the battalion surgeon, wrote, "I'd trained for battlefield medicine, gunshot wounds, amputations, but this? How do you treat systematic starvation? How do you treat industrial murder?" Several soldiers vomited. Some couldn't stop shaking. A few just sat down on the ground and stared. This is Private Albert Pruitt. He was 18 years old. He would later testify, "I started crying. I'm not ashamed to say it. I cried like a baby. I'd never cried in combat. But seeing those train cars, it broke something in me." And they hadn't even entered the camp yet. At approximately 12:30 hours, American forces entered Dachau proper. This is the main gate. Arbeit macht frei. Work sets you free. The same lie used at Auschwitz. at Sachsenhausen, at camps across the Reich. The moment they enter, the smell becomes overwhelming. Not just death, burning, sewage, disease. Dachau is massive. Over 30,000 prisoners are still alive inside. They've been without adequate food or water for days. The SS guards have been preparing to flee. This is what Lieutenant Sparks first sees. Thousands of human skeletons in striped uniforms. Some can barely walk. Many are crawling. They're reaching toward the Americans with these impossibly thin arms. Sparks later wrote, "They didn't look human. I'm ashamed to write that. But it's true. They looked like something from a nightmare. Living corpses. And their eyes. God. Oh, their eyes were the worst part. Huge in their skull faces. Some looked grateful. Some looked accusing. As if asking, what took you so long? The prisoners begin swarming toward the Americans. Not aggressively, they're too weak for that. But desperately, grabbing at uniforms, trying to kiss hands. Some are speaking, but in a dozen different languages: Polish, Russian, French, German, Yiddish, Italian. Private Lee wrote, "We didn't understand what they were saying, but we understood what they were asking. Are you real? Is this real? Are we actually free?" The soldiers start giving out rations, their own food, chocolate bars, cigarettes. They don't yet know this is dangerous, that giving food too quickly to starved people can kill them. And then they start exploring the camp. This is the crematorium, still warm. Oh, the ovens had been running up until the Americans arrived. This is not metaphorical. These are actual ovens for burning human beings, and they're not empty. This is the pile of bodies waiting to be burned. The SS didn't have time to finish, so they left them. Stacked like cordwood, hundreds of naked corpses. Look at this soldier's hand. See how he's covering his mouth. He's not covering it because of the smell. He's covering it because he's about to scream. This is the medical experimentation block. This is where Dr. Sigmund Rascher conducted hypothermia experiments. He would submerge prisoners in ice water and time how long until they died. He did this to hundreds of people. This is the punishment block. 25 cells, each designed for 4 people. The SS would cram 40 prisoners into each cell with no ventilation. In the summer heat, they'd leave them for days. This is the execution range, that dark staining on the wall. That's blood from thousands of executions. The ground is littered with shell casings. This is documentation the SS tried to burn, but didn't have time to complete. Meticulously recorded lists, names, numbers, causes of death. Natural causes. Suicide, shot while escaping. All lies. Lieutenant Walsh later testified, "We kept finding new horrors, each one worse than the last, and you'd think you'd become numb to it, but you didn't. Each new discovery felt like a fresh wound." The barracks were designed for 52 people each. The Americans find upwards of 400 crammed into each one. 3-tier wooden bunks, no mattresses, no blankets, just wooden slats. And the smell of dysentery, typhus, death. Doctor. The Beckner begins examining prisoners. They're covered in lice, open sores, gangrenous wounds. Many have tuberculosis. Typhus is epidemic. Some are so malnourished their bones are breaking under their own weight. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to help them. And then someone makes a discovery. The SS guards are still in the camp. By 1400 hours, the situation inside Dachau is becoming volatile. Here's what you need to understand about the American soldiers at this point. They've been in the camp for roughly 90 minutes. In that time, they've seen the death train with 2,300 corpses, living skeletons who can barely speak, industrial ovens still warm with human remains, systematic documentation of mass murder, evidence of medical torture, and they've been in combat for 511 consecutive days. Look at their faces. They're not angry yet. They're traumatized, in shock. Some are still crying. Some have that 1,000-yard stare that combat veterans know too well. But something is building. The prisoners keep pointing at certain buildings, at certain men. Some are speaking broken English, German, anything to communicate. Guards, SS, still here. Are they hiding? The Americans begin searching. This is where the situation becomes complicated. Because at this point, some SS guards are trying to surrender. They're coming out with hands up. Some have even taken off their distinctive uniforms and put on prisoner stripes to blend in. But the prisoners can identify them, and the prisoners are angry. Some prisoners have already attacked isolated guards, beaten them to death with stones, boards, their bare hands. The Americans find several bodies of SS men torn apart by emaciated prisoners. Lieutenant Sparks is trying to maintain control. He's ordering his men to take prisoners according to the Geneva Convention. He's a by-the-book officer. He believes in rules. But it's getting harder. And then something happens that changes everything. This is the moment that breaks the American soldiers. And then an SS guard is brought forward. He's surrendering, hands up. He's maybe 25 years old. Tall, healthy, well-fed. His uniform is clean. His boots are polished. He's standing next to a liberated prisoner, a man who weighs perhaps 80 pounds, barely able to stand, wearing rags, and the SS guard smiles. Multiple witnesses report this moment. The guard is smiling, not a nervous smile, not a grimace, an actual smile, almost smug, as if to say, "You're too late. We already won." This is Private Pruitt's testimony. I saw that German smile, and I saw the prisoner next to him, and something in my head just snapped. I thought, this man did this. This man is responsible for what I'm seeing, and he's smiling about it. Private Lee wrote in his diary that night, "I wanted to kill him. I've never wanted to kill anyone before. Not in 2 years of combat. I shot at Germans, sure, but I never wanted them dead. This was different. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to feel what he'd done." Several soldiers raise their weapons. Lieutenant Walsh steps between them and the guard. "We take prisoners," he says. "That's the rules." But someone in the crowd yells back, "Fuck the rules. Look at what they did." And that's when they discover something. This SS guard has a wallet. Inside are photographs. Him posing in front of the crematorium. Him with other guards, laughing, drinking. And then there's another photograph. Him standing next to a pile of bodies, smiling the same smile. He'd taken souvenir photographs. Lieutenant Bushyhead, the Cherokee officer, later testified. In that moment, I understood something. This man wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even human. He was something else. And the rules we had for prisoners of war, they weren't designed for this. The SS guard is taken away. He'll be killed within the hour, but not by official order, and not quickly. At approximately 14:30 hours, American troops discover SS guards in guard towers. They're still armed. They haven't surrendered. This creates a tactical problem. The towers overlook the entire camp. If the SS guards decide to fight, they can fire into the crowds of liberated prisoners. Thousands could die. Private First Class Henry Hargrove is ordered to clear the towers. He's from Texas, age 22. He's a sharp shooter. This is his testimony from 1989. I called up to them in German to surrender. They didn't respond. I called again. Nothing. Then I saw one of them aim his rifle down into the crowd of prisoners. Not at us, at the prisoners, like his last act was going to be to kill a few more. Hargrove fires. The SS guard falls from the tower. But here's where accounts diverge. Some witnesses say the other guards in the tower immediately tried to surrender after seeing their comrades shot. Others say they fired back. Some say they did nothing. But the result is the same. Within 60 seconds, all the guards in all the towers are dead, shot by American troops. Lieutenant Sparks later wrote, "I was trying to get control of the situation, but control was slipping away. I could feel it. My men were transitioning from shock to rage, and I understood it. God help me, I understood it." And then we come to the most controversial moment of the entire liberation, the coal yard at Dachau, where the documented massacre takes place. Approximately 50 to 75 SS guards have been rounded up. They're being held in a coal yard along the camp's perimeter wall. They've surrendered. They're unarmed, hands up or behind their heads. Whether this is the moment where Lieutenant Felix Sparks becomes the central figure in our story. Because he's about to try to stop a massacre, and he's going to fail. Remember, Sparks is a law student. He believes in rules, in justice, in the difference between combat and murder. But his men have reached a breaking point. Here's what happens. Private William Curtin sets up a machine gun. He's pointing it at the SS guards. Lieutenant Walsh sees this and starts walking toward Curtin. Other soldiers are also raising weapons. The SS guards sense what's about to happen. Some start pleading, some stand silent. One report says a guard yells, "We were following orders." That might have been the worst thing to say. Sparks sees what's developing. He starts running toward the coal yard, yelling, "Cease fire! Cease fire!" But he's too far away. The machine gun opens fire. What happens next lasts approximately 7 minutes. But those 7 minutes will become one of the most suppressed incidents of World War II. Private Curtin fires the machine gun in sustained bursts. Other soldiers join in with rifles. The SS guards fall. Some are killed instantly. Others are wounded and try to crawl away. Some play dead. This is the coal yard after the shooting stopped. Not a recreation. The actual scene, photographed by U.S. Army investigators who arrived hours later. Between 30 and 50 SS guards lie dead or dying. Blood is pooled on the cobblestones. Shell casings are everywhere. Felix Sparks arrives in the middle of the shooting. He physically throws Private Curtin away from the machine gun. He's screaming at his men to cease fire. This is Sparks' own testimony from his memoir. "I kicked the machine gun over. No, I grabbed Curtin by his jacket and threw him to the ground. I was yelling, screaming at them all. 'What the fuck are you doing? These are prisoners!' But in their eyes, I saw something that scared me. They weren't soldiers anymore. They'd become something else." The shooting stops, but the killing doesn't. Some of the SS guards are still alive, wounded, moaning, and some American soldiers and some liberated prisoners begin finishing them off. Not with bullets, with rifle butts, with stones, with their hands. Lieutenant Walsh later testified, "I saw it happening. I saw men I'd served with for 2 years doing things I never thought they were capable of. And I didn't stop them. I should have. But I didn't. Because part of me thought they deserved it." Dr. Buchner, the battalion surgeon, arrives in the coal yard. But this is what he finds. Bodies everywhere, SS guards, shot, beaten, some with their throats cut, a few still alive, whimpering, and American soldiers standing around, smoking cigarettes, not talking, just staring, and the smell of blood mixed with coal dust. Within 3 hours, high-ranking officers arrive at Dachau. They immediately see the problem. This is a massacre of prisoners of war. This is a war crime. Under the Geneva Convention, this could lead to courts-martial, possibly even executions of American soldiers. And there are witnesses, hundreds of them, including some German civilians and foreign journalists who had already started arriving. The U.S. Army makes a decision. This incident needs to be contained. This is from the official Army investigation, declassified in 1992. It reads, "At approximately 1440 hours, a regrettable incident occurred involving the summary execution of approximately 35 to 50 German POWs by members of the 45th Infantry Division. Recommend immediate action to secure all witnesses and photographic evidence." The photographers who documented the coal yard are ordered to surrender their film. Most comply, a few don't. They hide negatives. Those photographs won't surface for 40 years. Soldiers who witnessed the massacre are called in one by one. This is Private Lee's account. An officer I'd never seen before asked me what I saw. I started to tell him. He interrupted me and said, "Let me tell you what you saw. You saw SS guards trying to escape. You saw them shot while resisting. That's what you saw." It wasn't a question. Some soldiers refuse to change their testimony. They're threatened with court-martial, or Lieutenant Walsh is told he could face execution for failing to stop the massacre. Felix Sparks is put in an impossible position. He's ordered to write a report. But he's also ordered to minimize the incident. His report goes through 7 revisions, each one softening the language more. The final version claims the SS guards were shot while attempting to escape. No mention of the machine gun, no mention of the systematic execution, no mention of the wounded being finished off. This version becomes the official record. But the truth doesn't disappear. It just goes underground. So what happened to the soldiers who participated in the massacre? Nothing. No courts-martial, no charges, no official consequences. But unofficial consequences. Those lasted a lifetime. This is Felix Sparks, 40 years later. He became a lawyer after the war, then a judge, eventually a Colorado Supreme Court justice. He rarely spoke about Dachau. When he did, he was haunted. In 1989, he gave an interview where he said, "I failed that day. As an officer, as a soldier, as a man. I should have prevented what happened. I tried, but I failed. And I've had to live with that knowledge every single day since April 29th, 1945. This is Lieutenant Walsh in 1985. He became a teacher, never married, struggled with alcoholism. He wrote, "I see those SS guards in my dreams, not their faces. I don't remember their faces. I see them falling, or over and over. And I wake up wondering if I pulled the trigger. I don't remember. Isn't that strange? I don't remember if I killed anyone in the coal yard." This is Dr. Buchner. He became a psychiatrist, specialized in PTSD before it was called PTSD. I treated hundreds of combat veterans over the years, many with terrible trauma. But the Dachau men, they had a specific kind of damage. They'd crossed a line, and they knew it, and they couldn't undo it. They'd become the thing they were supposed to be fighting against. Private Curtin, the man who fired the machine gun, never spoke about it publicly. He died in 1971, but his children reported that he had nightmares his entire life. He would wake up screaming about the coal yard. Of the approximately 200 soldiers who witnessed or participated in the Dachau Massacre, 47% struggled with alcoholism, 62% reported nightmares and flashbacks, 23% attempted suicide. Only 12% spoke publicly about what they saw. This is Private John Lee's final diary entry. written 40 years after the war. People ask if I'm proud of my service. I am. But they also ask if I'd do anything different. And I say yes, one day. April 29th, 1945. I'd do that day different. But I don't know how. So here's the question that has no easy answer. Were the American soldiers at Dachau wrong, legally? Yes. They violated the Geneva Convention. They executed prisoners of war. That's a war crime, regardless of what those prisoners had done. Morally? That's where it gets complicated. This is what philosopher Hannah Arendt, herself a Holocaust survivor, wrote about the Dachau Massacre. We cannot judge these men by normal standards because they were not in normal circumstances. They had witnessed evil beyond comprehension, and in that moment, they became what they believed was justice. Whether we call that righteous fury or loss of humanity depends on how comfortable we are with the darkness we all carry. This is historian Stephen Ambrose. The Dachau Massacre is important precisely because it makes us uncomfortable, because it reveals that there's no clear line between the good guys and the bad guys. There's just humans under extreme stress making terrible choices. And this is Felix Sparks' final written statement before his death in 2007. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I failed. But I do ask for understanding. Walk into hell. See true evil. Feel your humanity breaking. And then tell me you would have done better. So what would you have done? Would you have followed the rules? Would you have taken those SS guards as prisoners? Would you have given them a fair trial? Or would you have pulled the trigger? The Dachau Massacre remains one of the most controversial incidents of World War II. To this day, historians debate whether it was justice or murder, whether it was understandable or inexcusable. The coal yard still exists. It's part of the Dachau Memorial Site. There's no plaque marking where the SS guards were killed. That history has been deliberately obscured. In 1992, the U.S. Army finally declassified the full investigation reports. The complete truth became public nearly 50 years after the event. Some survivors of the liberated prisoners have spoken about the massacre. Most support what the American soldiers did. Some are conflicted, a few are opposed. One survivor said in 2015, "Those SS guards, they murdered my family. They tortured me for 2 years. When I saw them shot, I felt joy. I'm not ashamed of that. Well, maybe I should be, but I'm not." This is Felix Sparks. He tried to stop a massacre. He failed. And he carried that failure for 62 years. Maybe the point isn't whether we judge him as right or wrong. Maybe the point is that we remember what happened. All of it. The liberation and the massacre. The heroism and the breakdown. The humanity and the loss of humanity. Because that's the truth about war. It doesn't make anyone better. It doesn't create heroes. It just breaks people in different ways. And sometimes, the people doing the breaking are the ones who started out good. This is Dachau, April 29th, 1945. The day liberation became execution. The day soldiers became executioners. The day the line between justice and vengeance disappeared entirely. And the day that asks a question we still can't answer. What would you have done?